We're the Wests. We're the Wests.
Keenan, Johnny, Kai, Kelsey, Cohen. Keenan, Johnny, Kai, Kelsey, Cohen. And we're reclaiming our identity.
We have made it here to Elmina Castle. As you can see, it's right on the coast. Guys outside selling some jewelry. This is the no.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing very well. I'm waiting for you since yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Let me tell you something, all right?
I'm late.
I came here
Yeah.
in 2008.
You met me?
I met you in 2008. You were here in 2008, weren't you?
Exactly.
I remember you in 2000. I remember that face.
That's correct.
Came back here this time with my wife, man.
Oh, okay.
Man, what's your name?
Philip.
Philip?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you,
Yeah,
Philip.
good to meet you.
Man, Saint Mercy.
Good to see
Woo,
you again.
you as well, man. It's interesting. I was here in 2008. Came with a group and I preached. And before we left, we came here to Elmina Castle, and that same guy, Philip, he was our tour guide here at Elmina Castle. It is amazing that I come back and he is still here. And so, thank you. Washrooms, okay. So these are the washrooms up there. Okay. Thank you. Listen to that ocean, breathe that ocean. It is just amazing that this place, first of all, is still standing. And it's also sad that it's still standing. This vivid reminder of what our ancestors had to go through. Those 400 years ago.
I want to Dr. Singh.
Now, before I start the talk, I would like to give a brief introduction, and then later on we move to the dungeons. You are allowed to take pictures, as many as you wish, for us the space on your phone can take. And you're also allowed to to ask questions. And then respond. And then let me start this way. If we looked at West Africa, from the time various European nations started exploring our coast, which we were told was pioneered by Portuguese, forward to the time that we started getting our political independence, late 1950s, 1960s. We had counted over 100 European forts and castles, which I prefer calling them slave dungeons, along the coast of West Africa. Interestingly, Ghana with a coastline a little about 500 kilometers. We had counted over 50 out of 100 forts and castles. Very strange, right? But if you try to ask why, the reason simple. Portuguese were getting gold from me. So every other European wanted to compete, decided to come closer. That's one reason. And again also, the coastline also was really friendly. In other words, they have a very nice beaches, walls for them to put up their fortification, and so on and so forth. That's one reason. And let me get back to the story. At the moment, out of the 50 forts and castles, only 17 of them is still standing that we can visit. And there are only 3 slave castles, largest slave trade castles in West Africa. And all these 3 is found here. So we have Christenburg, slave castle, as we call it, Osu, slave castle in Osu here, by the Danish. We have, it's in Accra. We have Cape Coast Castle, just here, and then Elmina Castle, or Elmina Slave Dungeon, right where we are today. For the sake of time, not to hold you here, I will try to limit my presentation within the walls of these dungeons. So if time permits us, then we go beyond that. Portuguese were here in 1471 for 2 main reasons: to trade and also to spread Christianity. At the time, they introduced what we called barter trade. In other words, they were exchanging goods for goods. And they were coming with European finished products, such as mineral, sugar, alcohol, textiles, in exchange for gold, ivory, spices, and a lot more. But in the course of this trade, one major commodity that they were so much interested in at the time was gold. So at the rate Portuguese were getting gold from this land, gave them an impression that gold mine is found here. So they named or called this place Elmina. In the proper Portuguese language, they say Amina, meaning the mine. But our people couldn't say this properly, so it was corrupted as Elmina, now the name of this place. But as African, and as we are Africans, I keep telling people that it's not like Portuguese discovered this place, as we've been told when we were at the high school that all the discoveries in this world were made by them. No, we were here before they came. Meaning that we have a name for this place. Now here is called Anum Mansan. Let me try if I can say it correctly. Anum Mansan, Enuma Onsan. That is inexhaustible water. A very beautiful name, right? Before we had the year of 2019, the chief and the others brought up a proposal to ensure that we have this name. But because names are very important. Like what Marcus Garvey said, it says a nation of people without knowledge of their history, culture, so they are like true without roots. That is a lot. So you need to know where you are. And we were here when they came, and initially our people took them to be, I would say, gods, so, but this, fear gave way to trade. And later on, a permission was granted that they should put up this very small structure. Initially, it was a fort, and as years goes by, they made it as big as we have today. Yes. Now, Portuguese were here for 155 years. It is sad to know that 110 years was used for slave trade. At a point, people of Elmina became fed up of the activity of the people. Now, if anyone had told me that Africans never resisted their enslavement and so on and so forth, that person is speaking from the other side.
Yes.
Now, people of Elmina say, hey, enough is enough. So they thought to get out on a get rid of the Portuguese. In fact, Elmina or Anumasa was just a small village. Thinking of the weapon or whatever, they don't have it. So what they sought to do was to collaborate over another European nation. For me, that was another mistake. But if you ask them, they will say they had no option, and I will explain to you later on as Now, the Dutch were said to be the Messiah. Unfortunately, when they came in, what do we say, from frying pan to fire?
Yeah.
Dutch continued this trade for over 200 years from the sea. In 1807, British Parliament officially abolished slavery. Dutch same 1814. But all these was just on paper. The trade continued illegally for over 50 years. So in the 1870s, this very stretcher was no longer profitable for them. Dutch sold it to the British. Now, British were here from 1872 up to the time we had our independence in 1957. The record has shown that they were here primarily due to political reasons, so on and so forth. But let me remind you that British had used Cape Coast Slave Castle for over 200 to 300 years actively in the trade before coming here. So it wasn't like they were not part. They were part.
They were part.
They were part. This is what happened. On the eve of our Independence Day on Polo Grounds in Accra, this is what this illustrious son of Ghana says. He says, when black man is given the chance, we are capable of managing our own affairs. So he prefers that Africans should be at the helm, offering solutions to our own problems. In fact, he was talking about African unity, that we must come together. Because unity, in unity there is strength. Unfortunately, those who fail to get along with him, or those who, I was trying to say those who understood what he meant and the threat that he poses to them, that's correct, collaborated with the West to have him overthrown in 1966. One point says that what our founding fathers were talking about, Africa must unite, is what we are still talking about today. So if we are continuing that kind of consistency up to this point, things wouldn't have degenerated to where we find ourselves today. And today, all our water bodies, everywhere you go, they are there. I'll come to that point. So, out of 500 years existence of this building, nearly 400 years of its history is talking about slave trade. Unfortunately, this story cannot be said when it comes to our history as Africans. So it's important that as we are going into it, we need to understand it properly so that we can transfer it to our people and to get the correct information. Now, people keep asking, how did all this begin? It is important for us to know that Europeans had set the tone for our enslavement before the emergence of these forts and castles along our coast. In 1441, there was this king, Prince Henry the Navigator, who had commissioned his men to, discover more lands, and we are told that they are going to a place then called Rio de Oro, meaning a river of gold, today around Senegal, Gambia. Now, when this man was going back, he captured some Africans and some amount of gold dust as an evidence to the king that indeed they have reached the land of the Negroes, the land of the black people. He received them with delight and thought that he was going to train some of them to become priests, so as to hasten the spread of Christianity on the African soil. Others will be trained to serve as interpreters to help them to trade. But they ended up in the palaces as slaves. That's one. Things took a different turn altogether, as you all know, in 1492. This year rings a bell, when this man called Christopher Columbus. This man had a dream or whatever, thinking that if I could sail west, I would get to India. And some say in the process, he got drifted. But I belong to the school of thought. We say this man actually got lost. And that's the Caribbean. So when this European finally got in there, they had sugarcane, cotton plantations. They started using the Native Americans. That is the Indians. And the story continues saying that the nature of work and brutality measured out to these Indian populations. Soon their population became what I would say decimated or one of the stations. So it occurred to them that, hey, if we ought to remain in business, then we should find other means of getting people to replace these Indians. Then came one of the Roman Catholic priests called Bartholomew de las Casas, came with a suggestion that why don't we try the Africans? In 1510, about 50 Africans were taken from Portugal to a place then called Hispaniola. Now this place has now been shared between Haiti and Dominican Republic, where they were tried, and they got to know that comparatively these Africans could resist the disease much better than the Indians. So what happened is that more of our people were then in demand. At a time in history, Portuguese were the sole Europeans in the entire West Africa operating from here. So, under the blessing of the church, and when I say the church, I am talking about the Roman Catholic Church. And upon the royal blessing under the Assentors, they were given that license to go about getting people. Others will say getting slaves. But I keep reminding them that people living here were not slaves.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So they were doing that, getting people. But with time, they got to know that there is no hope in doing this. So what they sought to do was to collaborate with our own people. And let me take time to digest this problem. You see, there are lots of factors that actually led to our enslavement. People always escape one thing. You see, our history never began with slavery.
Right.
Or our history never began with the coming of the Europeans. Not at all. Remember, there was a time that this continent was described as the cradle of civilization.
Yes.
Well,
We have had universities of higher learning here before, in Timbuktu, and a whole lot of other places. We also have a whole lot of empires, kingdoms, and so on and so forth. I talk of Ghana Empire, Mali Empire, and so forth. There was this saying that there was a time that we have Sundiata was the most richest person in the continent, right, on the world. So we have those. But this is the problem. Close to the 14th, 15th centuries, all the empires that we have in West Africa, in Africa, by that extent, other kingdoms had collapsed. Whenever it happens like that, people began to move in groups. So by 14th, 15th centuries, we had become tribes, smaller groups. So they were quick enough to capitalize on our deficiencies, our weakness, succeeded in setting us up. So eventually, we were fighting among ourselves. I am talking about divide and conquer. One thing that I like about it is that consistency, always maintain consistency. They are very consistent.
That's true.
So, what led to our enslavement? The tool that they employed was to see us further divided. After slavery had lost its shine and luster, they came to colonial period. So what did they do? In 1884, 1885, they had Berlin Conference. And what they did again, they sat down to divide this continent among themselves. So they were division at first, division again. So if you look at Africa today, Africans in Africa are still divided, just like Africans living outside the continent. In fact, we are the only continent in the world that speaks language which is not ours.
Come on now, there you go, right there.
Proud at it. We have the Anglophone Africans, those who speak English, the like of Ghana, Nigeria, and so on and so forth. We have the Francophone bloc, who speak French. We have the Lusophones, those who speak Portuguese, Portuguese, yes. And then we have those who say they are Arabs. Now, this is making the vision of the continent very difficult. And who said that they are going to sit down
and wait for us to integrate?
No way. So we have to see the need to quicken the pace. Nobody is going to do that for us. And why is it so important for us to come together? Because, and let's make it more practical. Chinese did that today. They have the economic hub in the world.
Yes.
One thing I like so well about the Russians is that they don't travel. They believe that let's stay in here and build unity is the key. So look at this. We have all the resources you can think of on this continent. No?
Yeah.
Yet we are described as one of the poorest continents on the earth. It tells you that. That's correct.
Just that.
It tells you that we are not doing something correct. Right? So what are you waiting for, like you said? Let's go with the pace. Like last time I was telling a friend that if we are to give opportunity to Africans outside the continent to bring their experience to bear on our continent, in no time, the situation will change.
That's right. That's right.
Because when you get the money and you are African, why are you taking the money to? Money means it.
Yes.
If you get the money, where does it go? That's how we go.
Yes.
So unity is the key. You said united.
We stand.
Divided.
We fall.
Yes.
So let me get back to the castle. You see, practically, they had a little over 100 Europeans who lived here at the time of slavery. Look at this kind of analogy. 100 Europeans who lived here. 1,000 strong men and women of African descent were in the dungeons.
Yes.
On top, we have thousands and millions of Africans all over. Yet each day, people were being brutalized, being killed, and thrown in the sea. We saw it. We know what has happened. We could have come and say, hey, you these people live here for all these sort of, I don't want to say nonsense, or for all this kind of whatever to stop. Atrocity to stop. But we remain quiet. You know why? we bought into the propaganda that those in the dungeons going through all these brutalities are not part of us. They are from different tribes. So it is them and others.
Yeah.
And they told this one too that it is them and not you. They told me it
Yes,
is
exactly, exactly.
So we bought into that idea.
Right.
So all this into it. So what I'm going to do is simply we're going to see how division led to all these brutalities in the dungeons. And I will look at this relevance today. Alright? So please, begin our faith.